one other thing that I was kind of thinking about in the parallels between how this meal timing is having a pretty profound effect on for example, what's considered your long-term blood glucose levels, and also to some degree on inflammation. And these are markers of these markers are known to be associated with increased breast cancer risk. Right. But you said that weight loss may not necessarily occur. But what's interesting, you may not, let's say you don't change the types of foods you eat, but just you're basically only eating during a 12-hour window during the day. So that in itself may not cause you to lose weight
or significant amount,
or significant amount. But what's interesting is that on the flip side, weight loss itself has also been shown to have a positive effect on these same biomarkers.
Yes, right.
And so
we actually think that some of the positive effect might be independent of weight loss. You get the positive effect whether or not you lose weight. In our pilot study, women over a month lost about 1 kilogram, or about a little over 2 pounds. So we did see a modest weight loss. That's very modest. But even the mice studies that Dr. Panda does also tend to suggest that the impacts may be independent. Like, it just helps you regardless of whether you lose weight or not.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was getting at. It seems as though it may just really be affecting your metabolism and making sure that you're timing your food intake with when your metabolism's at its best, when you can process these, the sugar and the fats and just everything that you're throwing at it. And that seems to be in and of itself extremely important. Right. So.
And, we have seen in our breast cancer survivor study, we definitely saw an improvement in hours of sleep per night when people had a longer fasting duration. And, bad sleep can also affect biomarkers, and it's its own risk. Right. So that might be partially, it's partially working through direct metabolic effect, but it might be working through other behaviors too. By improving sleep and getting more sleep could also help regulate your metabolism and kind of feed into the positive impacts. Similarly, it's very interesting, but in several mouse studies, they've shown big improvements in spontaneous activity when they're when they're not on this fasting regimen. We don't necessarily think that if women or humans adopt a prolonged nightly fast, they're going to start working out at the gym, but there might be some more subtle effects on spontaneous activity, which frankly is the majority of the physical activity most people have, is just spontaneous, everyday, normal activity. So, the animal studies lead us to believe it can have several behavioral impacts in addition to the direct metabolic impacts.
Yeah, it's very interesting. Yeah. I wonder if there's just changing the brain, lots of...
It's, the data showing that eating a bunch of food and going to sleep disrupts your sleep has been around a long time. Yeah. It's just, you don't sleep well on a full stomach, just period over out, so it's kind of, that's literature has been out there for a while.
I've been practicing this time restricted feeding now for, once I, Dr. Sachin Panda's work was really eye-opening, and I, thought, well, I usually try to stop eating earlier in the day, and it's a lot easier for me in the fall and winter months when it gets darker earlier and I'm not working so late. The thing for me is when I'm working late, when you start working later, it's light out, I'm like, oh, I got to keep working. Then you start to extend your work day, and that becomes the issue.
Surprise, Western lifestyle is carcinogenic. In case you didn't know that, now you do.
So now we have the bright light exposure in the evening.
Many things about our lifestyle are carcinogenic, right?
It's really not that difficult to do, and I'm just I start the clock once I have my first cup of coffee, and then it's I got to start cooking dinner, at least 2 hours before that or something. So that way I'm done. And you're not hungry, you're not starving when you go to bed. Some people, I think their fear is, well, you mentioned it's hard to sleep when you're super full, but on the flip side, a lot of people have this mentality that if they're really hungry, you can't sleep. Right. But I think there's a nice balance between those two, and that is if you just eat something, in a reasonable time, 7, 8 p.m., stop.
I mean, along with that, I have to say, I probably think it's probably best for you to go to bed at a reasonable hour,
Right.
not be staying up till 2 in the morning playing video games or whatever, so, it can all be synergistic or in a positive way or in a negative way.
Yeah.